Okay, Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Arts First podcast, the first of 2026. As ever, we're dedicated to freedom of expression in the arts and celebrating arts for art's sake. Incidentally, images in this conversation, relevant to this conversation, are featured in our Substack page relating to this podcast. So do check that out and sign up to our Substack for future notifications. It's free. My name is Wendy Ellen, and in this episode, I am interviewing Miriam Elia, a British artist who uses her artistic talents to create gently subversive, funny political satire to mock contemporary mainstream and favoured middle-class prejudices, conventions and behaviours, aka woke ideology. Miriam, I think I first heard of your work when your work ISIS Threatens Sylvania was cancelled and removed by police from a Passion for Freedom exhibition in central London around 10 years ago. For listeners, ISIS in Sylvania was a series of 3D tableaux using ridiculously cute Sylvanian family miniatures toy sets to create idyllic scenes, and around these idyllic scenes was sinister, miniature masked ISIS terrorists lurking at the edges, threatening an invasion. The scenes were simultaneously shocking and very funny. So Miriam, I just wanted to ask you, what happened with that exhibition? Because I think the police tried to close the show down, didn't they?
Yeah, they so at the time I was traveling abroad with my husband, and I was told that I would have to pay something like £100,000 in security costs in order to show the work, which is a veiled way of saying don't put the work up. And the gallery said that they didn't want to show it because they were scared that it would incite a terrorist attack. And as the gallery was near Buckingham Palace, where the ICA is, so they said, that's near enough the Queen, it's not.
Were they threatened?
Yeah, they were threatened by it. So it was pulled.
Were they threatened by the police did the police?
No, the police were the people that instigated this and said that it wasn't actually art. Interesting. And but if they were to show it, they would have to pay 100,000 for security because it could invoke Islamophobia or a terrorist attack or something. Yeah. This was then pulled, and on my return from Vietnam, I discussed it with a journalist from The Guardian who said, "Oh, that's a very interesting story." This was 2016, and so she decided to push it as a story. And lo and behold, it went online. It said, ISIS in Sylvania has been pulled from Passion for Freedom Festival, which is really a great tag because it's called Passion for Freedom.
Yes.
And what followed was a sort of frenzy of interest in it, and because it's a very strong piece of work.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And I returned from Vietnam. Maybe that was before or after. It was sometime. So, and yeah, I remember turning on the radio, on Radio 4, and hearing the news at 10 or whatever, and they said, the piece ISIS in Sylvania by artist Mimsy. I didn't use my real name at the time. That was it, for obvious reasons. They said this piece has been removed from the Passion for Freedom exhibition, and then it just went viral, and it went to RT News and Daily Mail, and everyone was rabbiting on about it. No one knew it was me.
I think I interviewed you shortly after it for Spiked. We didn't break the news that it was you.
Yeah,
we just talked about work as a kind of a subversive artist. Yeah, so that kind of in a way gave you quite a lot of publicity. Wow.
Yeah, although it didn't, because no one knew it was me.
Oh, that's true, of course. Yes. The anonymous you, yes.
The other me got along with me, but not me. Yeah. I don't really make work for me. I make work for everyone else. So I don't really care that it could have Joe blogs on it. I don't care.
Yeah.
It's about the work. So in my opinion, it did what it was supposed to do, and it reached as many people as possible. At the time, I was making a lot of money from my other books that were selling, like we go to the gallery and we go out and we learn at home, they were selling really well.
Yeah.
So I had the money and the time to go to the studio, buy a load of Sylvanians and make this work. And I think I'm always driven by, if I get something in my head, it doesn't matter when it's done, it just has to be done. Even though I didn't have any clue of how I'd earn a living out of it. I mean, I sold the originals, but it wasn't that much money, But it's not really about the money. It's just about getting this work out of my head and onto a light box or wherever. It was very hard to shoot it because it was like a Argos catalogue, to make it look flat and silly. And I even hired photographers to come and they couldn't do it. And I ended up managing to do it myself on some really kind of old digital camera that I had. I've somehow managed to get the exact kind of shot that I wanted. And I fiddled with it in Photoshop. But my favorite part about that work was making all the outfits of the Sylvanians.
Yeah, all the little tiny things.
I found a Sylvanian tailor online, and I didn't tell her who I was or what I was doing, and I commissioned her every week. I was like, I need 4 fireman outfits, the 16 schoolgirls, the costumes, tiny costumes, and they'd come and post every week. And I made the terrorists with my gloves. I had thin insulate gloves, black, and I just thought, I could just cut off the fingers, and then that makes a balaclava, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And a few G.I. Joe Kalashnikovs, off you go.
It was very subversive. You also made a book, didn't you? Because I found I've got a copy.
Okay, so after the work was finished, I was left with a huge amount of interest, but this fear around the work. I think Channel 4 did a whole documentary on it with Trevor Phillips, where they did show the work in Hackney. They did like a Dalston Square. They did like a pop-up gallery and they showed it. And they asked people what they thought, and people were like, "Oh, it's great. It's really funny." So it was to show, it was called Has Political Correctness Gone Too Far? This was in 2016. This is long before woke really took off and stuff, but it was going that way.
Yeah.
So I wanted to, I made a series of light boxes and sold them to a collector. And but I wanted to have something, I love a book because, they can go to anyone. So I decided, as I said, I was making really good money from the other work, to just run a really small edition of this as a baby book, because I have this thing about childhood and dealing with adult themes through the medium of children's books. So I found a way of doing a board book, for very, very little children, with safe edges. I thought this would be the best way of presenting the work conceptually, so that it becomes even more dumb. And it's just great. There's no words, so it's just all 7 plates, but beautifully bound as a thing. So the minimum I was able to do of that was 2,000 RON. And unfortunately, when it came back from the printers, the people at the time, I had a fulfillment center that was stocking my work and sending it out for all the orders online and stuff, because I didn't have time to do all of that. So they said the content was too much for them. They wouldn't be able to send it out in the mail, and lo and behold, my distributors were too scared as well. So that left me with 2,000 books, and really the only people I could sell them to were people that followed me, on my mailing list and things. I'm not a very social media person, so I didn't do that, and I never have. I probably should do. So I sold a few, and then I binned the rest because I was like, well, I haven't got room to store them. I can't send them to the warehouse. I can't send them to the distributor. So there's not really very much I can do with them. But I left about 2 or 3 boxes. So that's all that remains of that project as a book.
I think I've got a copy, and I noticed you're selling them from quite a high price on your website. So
it's a high price because it's extremely rare. You can't buy it in the shop. It's a work of art, and I've only got 2 or 3 boxes of them. So why shouldn't I? To be honest with you, most crap art. Some people sell absolute rubbish for £50,000. So
a lot of listeners or a number of listeners might know about, maybe familiar with your books, which is kind of like they kind of subvert the old Ladybird series of children's a children's reading scheme about Peter and Jane, and they're very clever because they've got a kind of nostalgic edge. You know, you feel like you're getting into a nostalgia, and then when you read the content, you think, "Oh my God, no, this is not about the past; it's about the present." I was sort of like, I think we go to the gallery was your first one, was it?
Yeah.
Back
Yeah.
kind of 2014 or something like that.
Yeah.
It sort of is. It's mocking contemporary art, sort of conceptual art and performance art and that sort of thing. And
In a way, it's not just about the art. It's kind of like the whole establishment, really. The art is just the kind of facade for the ideology, if you know what I mean.
Yes, that's true. It's how people respond to it and the sort of pretensions,
The pretensions of
responses. Because I noticed that, you know, with the Saatchi exhibition that's on at the moment, the 40 years anniversary exhibition, they've got that work by the artist, the big oil. What is it called? Like a tank of oil that just is supposed to be very impressive. I'm going to see it soon.
We go to the galleries both a satire and a biography. I mean, it's more than just a satire. It's many things. It's about my whole life. It is me as a child being dragged around various art galleries, and it's just making sense of it all, I suppose. It's not really a theory of how I make it. It comes very much from the heart, but it was just me processing everything.
Yeah. But also looking at stuff. This one with the relating to oil says, "There is oil on the floor," says John. "The oil is all the blood shed by the US government in its illegal wars," says Mummy. "Golly," says John. And I think that sort of the text combined with the pictures just works very well to kind of, you know, make you prick up your ears when you're going through it.
It's all the contrast between the kind of anti-Western nihilistic position of the mother, who's mad to the progressive ideology, and the jolly happy pictures. That's the jolly happy pictures are what make it work, because it's really so destructive and so nihilistic and so sort of scathing that the only way you can kind of deal with that is by showing it as a reverse. And when you see it as a reverse, it suddenly makes you laugh.
Yeah.
Because in a way, I was thinking about this, like the Peter and Jane happy world, you know, with sunny skies and green lawns and traditional England is where they live. It is where they live. They're very, very lucky.
Well, we go to galleries type of thing. Yeah, and it's in contrast. I think there's one, We Do Lockdown, which is one of your most recent works. That's very funny because it does kind of like it's got a sense of the difference. You kind of the different way different people respond. So I think where is it? One particular scene, "Mummy is calling the police. Our council house neighbours have left their flat twice today. Their reckless behaviour is endangering our community, and she's sitting under a enormous chandelier in a really comfortable sofa living room." That's sort of, you're very good at pointing out that kind of hypocrisy, if you like.
Yeah, no, I did notice that the more wealthy people were, the more likely they were to lock themselves up. A family with 5 kids living in 2 rooms, they're like, "I'm not locking myself up. I'll be out for a walk. Thank you very much." So it was almost a privilege in a way to lock yourself up and rely on, you know, everybody else to come and ferry you food and all of these things, which my instinct about the whole thing was it was a massive overreaction, and that it was a huge turning point for the West. And I was at the time just I was a mum with 2 kids, you know, under the age of 3, sort of trying to make sense of what was going on around me. And so that book, I'm very proud of that book because I managed to channel everything I was feeling into it. But whilst I didn't really have time to sit back and put my feet up and eat grapes and watch TV, I was with, like I said, 2 young kids running around, trying to give them exercise, trying to make out that the world was actually normal, and that there was no reason why everyone was dressed like Darth Vader.
I imagine some readers will know about this, but your run-in with Penguin in your first, was it immediate just after the first publication, or had you done more?
I'd spent years making We Go to the Gallery. It was really labour of love. No one was paying me to do it. I just sort of got on with it and finally finished it. And it did become a big success. They jumped on that immediately because it was a brilliant idea and it was very well executed. Those Ladybird books were not present in the market at all. I mean, they'd been dead for donkey's years. You know, you couldn't really, people giving away for like 10p or something. They weren't in the consciousness of the public. But I think the success of my book put it straight into the consciousness of the public, and then they wanted to reconnect with their childhood, so they reconnected through this physical book that you could pick up. When this was, you know, the world is becoming increasingly more digital, more, you know, away from the physical. So this was, it just struck a chord, and Penguin knew that they would have to shut my work down in order to flood the market with this new thing that I'd created, and then tell everyone that it was me, but they knew it was me.
But basically they stopped you from using their, well, you had to stop using their logo, I suppose, which is...
Well, they didn't make it clear. If they'd have written to me saying, don't use the Ladybird logo, find something else, I would have been fine. But they didn't want me to do anything. So instead they sent me this huge amount of, you know, very, very scary letters of, this is our infringement on our copyright and this and that, and you don't own this and that. And unfortunately at the time, there was an exception for fair use and parody that was... that had gone through the law, the legal protection, and that was in the US and in Europe, but in England it hadn't been passed. So I was sort of not sure. Well, I technically I had infringed their copyright, but then I woke up one morning. I was like, "Well, just change it from a ladybird to something else," and then it became a dung beetle. This one,
Yes,
which kind of became an emblem for my life in some way. I don't know.
doing something along, a piece of shit along.
It's really like a piece of shit. So anyway, the dung, that really took off, and then there was not much they could do to change it. And I created a new style of illustrating it. I re-illustrated it from the very originals, using my own models rather than working from their old books.
So that's one of the things I wanted to go on to, actually, was you, because the text we've talked about is very funny. You know, you're funny, you're a funny person, you've been a stand-up comedian, you know how to respond sharply to any kind of moment. But could you say a little bit about how you go about creating the books? Because they are works of art in themselves, aren't they? I mean, you're not sort of like writing political treatises or anything like that. Your primary is the art.
Weirdly enough, I never start by writing anything. I always start visually, because I find that to be more of a kind of meditation. So I don't really know what I'm going to say. I can just see an image in my head. So then I paint the image. So I'll find something to work from. So some models, or, you know, if it's going to be about the oil on the floor, I'll have to find some images of that. And I create a kind of collage, if you want. And then I do a painting based on the collage to bring it all together, so it all looks like a new reality. So it all looks like a sort of ladybird reality. I don't do that for all of my work. Sometimes I just draw freehand without, you know, that pastiche. Sometimes I'm not working in the pastiche style, sometimes I am. But for these ones, I do a sort of collage where the two worlds come together, of whatever it is, and then I produce a painting with gouache, watercolor. So then when I've produced about 15, 20 paintings, I kind of try and put them in some kind of order. And then the very last thing I do is write. I never write before, ever, not with anything.
So does that, the writing synthesizes what you're thinking when you're painting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I try and keep the words to a very bare minimum to play with the image as well, just to kind of tease the image.
And do you see yourself as part of a kind of tradition of satirical art, or? And sort of, do you have any role models in that? Like, are you sort of thinking about Hogarth? Am I another Hogarth? Not obviously the
I
same.
don't know if I'm another Hogarth. I wouldn't put myself up so high. But I do think, I mean, all of Gilway, Rowlandson, Hogarth I fell in love with as a very young person. My mother gave me a book of his work. I thought he was brilliant. Also, a huge amount of cartoonists that I loved, like Ralph Steadman, and my own grandfather, who was a very famous caricaturist, Ralph Sallon. Ralph Sallon was one of the most famous caricaturists in England. He was my grandfather. So I was always from a young age looking at people taking the mickey in some way. And I knew that he was very brave because during the war he'd draw the Nazis looking awful, and they would blow these images up really big and drop them in occupied countries to stir up resistance. And he used to sign his name on. So he knew that if they ever got here, I think they found that he was on the death list of, people that they were going to eliminate first. Yeah, my grandfather's story, they're very brave people. You have to be. And also, they didn't ever lead the life of luxury, because he used to say to my mother, like, they would be walking around Dollishill Park or Hampstead Heath, and he said, "Oh, look at this huge house, really beautiful house," and that belongs to an artist who's very, very successful because he does portraits and he makes everyone look absolutely beautiful." And he goes, "I make everyone look terrible. That's why we live in Dollis Hill." But he was still brilliant at it. I think sometimes telling the truth in a kind of coarse way, it makes people laugh, but it makes them nervous.
So I don't get the impression that you see yourself as an activist, but do you see your art as contributing to any kind of political mission? Or
Yes, I'm not I'm not a left-wing activist. Never have been. I do support, rights of various groups of people, but I also have a very strong sense of a moral compass, which is not it's kind of anti-collectivist in a way. In that my worldview, I sort of take people as individuals. A lot of collectivism, it kind of, puts people in categories and groups, and it draws a kind of moral compass based on that. And I think that's somewhat of an illusion. I mean, there's a bit of truth to it, but it's not the whole truth. I'm just a bit of an outsider, really. I'm just trying to hold a mirror up.
perhaps one of the things you do is encourage people to look at things a little bit independently.
No, of course not. No, groupthink. Yeah, I'm very anti-groupthink.
Yeah. So your business, I think, is quite successful. Your little works of art are available to anybody who has a tenner to spare. And I'll put on the Substack, I'll put your website up, dunbeatlebooks.com.
Yeah, that's my socialist side, is like, I want everyone to be able to afford a copy.
We're all individuals, kind of.
Yeah. No, I like there's a humility to it as well. It's not arrogant. It's just, it's there to make anyone laugh or think or,
I think
reflect.
the thing that I think works very well about your books is you're not talking down to anyone. It's like a straightforward, this is what I think, you can take it or leave it kind of approach.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's very appealing. So what about exhibitions? I know you had an exhibition in Warsaw a couple of years ago, and that was organized by a few people, a small team of people who are very much about freedom of expression. Do you want to say a little bit about that?
So actually, that they were the people that tried to show my work, ISIS in Sylvania. They were largely Polish, so which I have some family there. So Pieter was the then curator of Jeziowski Castle, which is a big modern art gallery in Warsaw, and they wanted to show all my books as works of art, which was incredible for me because that's what they are. So they curated this fantastic exhibition over there. I'd first done a group show, and then I did a solo show, and I had all the original paintings and also with the text and the way they curated it. It was fantastic to be able to do that. And they also commissioned me to do 4 or 5 prints for them. So it was really, really good. I do feel like a lot of ex-communist countries or people that grew up under communism, they they like my work in a special sort of way because they understand the kind of groupthink of leftism. They're more like able to laugh at it, basically. Whereas in England, people here never experience living under that kind of system, so they don't, they can't see it's harder for them to laugh at themselves. They that's what the ideology so much.
I think also people tend to take the freedoms for granted. And
Tell me about it. Yeah.
How hard won they are. And I suppose that in some ways that kind of links with what's going on now with Iran.
Yeah.
Because you just sort of a lot of people don't seem to understand. I mean, a lot of people do understand it's the fight for freedom, but I'm quite surprised, particularly by people who I used to sort of associate with on the left, how much they seem to misunderstand that this is a struggle for freedom.
And they don't believe in freedom, though.
Well, maybe that's true. Yeah,
this is the main thing. A lot of people don't believe in freedom, and that's the. If they're being honest, they believe in global socialism, where they would be the ruling party or the elite group, and everybody else would live, under them. They won't say that explicitly, but at a certain point you have to go, well, they don't want individual autonomy. They use various sort of, women's rights, gay rights, all these rights, but they'll drop them under a bus if it doesn't serve the agenda. They don't care about women's rights in Iran, but they do in somewhere else. It's all passive aggressive.
It's true. It's kind of a bigger project, isn't it? They have in mind that somehow will make everybody equal and the same.
Ah, there's that word, equal and the same. Yes.
Yeah.
So we're not equal and the same. We are all worthy of life.
Yeah, and a good life.
And a good life, but we're not all the same, no. So a lot of the kind of mantras of it, if they question them, they feel like they're questioning their own faith in a way. Yeah. So that's why the support for Palestine is huge, because they're obviously married to the Islamists, and Palestinians don't really want freedom. They want to dominate Israel and for it to become Islamic, which they're quite explicit in what they say. So that's why they get in bed with them, but with the Iranians, look the other way.
Behind you, you've got the photograph of you. You said earlier you're a very old friend, a woman. Do you want to say a little bit about her? Because it sounds like she's been an incredibly brave person, and she's now suffering in jail, probably in.
So I met her in 2007, I believe, 6 or 7, on the bus. I was working at the BBC as a comedy writer. I just won some award. I can't remember what it was now. Sony, that was it. And I was working at Radio 4. I had my own show doing this late night thing called A Series of Psychotic Episodes. And I was also writing for other comedians. But anyway, I digress. I was going home on the bus from Great Portland Street, and she was sitting next to me, and I don't know why, but we struck up a conversation and we became quite friendly and changed numbers. Her name was Hengama Shahidi. She wasn't wearing a headscarf at the time. She invited me to meet her friends up in Hendon, lots of Iranians, and they had this big Iranian feast. It was delicious. So we met up a few times for a coffee, and she told me all about the situation in Iran. And I started reading about that. I'm quite humble. I don't know everything. So I just wanted to know sort of what that was all about, and also the historic ties between the Jewish people and the Iranian people, which I find really interesting. Anyway, fast forward a year, she went back to Tehran she was a journalist, to do a report on the Green. You remember there was they had another thing then, a Green Revolution, and she was arrested for writing a paragraph and sending it back to the BBC, critical of the regime, and she was tortured, imprisoned, subject to sort of mock executions where they take them out and try and kill them, but then they don't. And then I set up a campaign because I was in comedy at the time. I knew lots of comedians like Stuart Lee and all these people, and I put up a campaign to help get her an Amnesty profile, and it was quite successful. It was like a gig for her, It got some press coverage and whatnot, and Amnesty set up a campaign, and she wasn't killed, but she's currently serving, I think it's a life sentence for actively participating in women's rights or something like that. So she's quite a well-known figure out there.
Yeah.
But anyway, the events of the last week or so, I've just been thinking about her quite a lot, about all the people they're killing on the streets. Because it's easy for us to just sit here and go, oh, freedom, oh, really, is this really freedom? And it's like, well, yeah, yesterday I got up, I had a nice breakfast, and I drove to the swimming pool. I swim in a pool with men and women. These things you take for granted, right? I'm coming here speaking, writing, drawing, doing whatever I want. I mean, we have less freedom in the UK than we've ever had before, but
better than being in Iran.
So we always have to look at the kind of the other side of it, and Iran, they're literally just chasing after them in the street, just live ammo at young people, just killing people, 50,000 people. But the point is the Iranians want freedom, autonomy, democracy, rule of law, which is what I want. I do not want any kind of oppressive system. The Palestinians don't want that, because it's at the end of it all, it's not about the people. It is about the ideas which they're fighting for.
Yeah.
Germans died than Brits in World War II. That's tragic. It's always tragic when people die, but for what? For why? What kind of system do you want to live under, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And the quality of life is not just to do with wealth, but it's also to do with a sense that you can speak your mind and have a discussion about something without being shot or arrested.
And you could be wrong about something.
Gaza and I suppose that's one of the things about Israel and maybe moving on a little bit to that whole thing about the way pro-Israel people who sort of favor Israel, artists and others, find themselves kind of ostracized today.
Yeah.
And that sort of sense that I don't know, where does that demand for ostracization or cancellation come from, do you think?
Well, it's a sign that you're living under a kind of tyranny. So tyranny happens when you're not able to sort of argue your point or listen to an alternative point of view. You get fixed dogmatic ideas and you want to enforce them on people. So traditionally, for thousands of years, when people become tyrannical about anything, they tend to hate the Jews. We're all the first people they go for. And I think that has a very deep resonance with who we are as a people, which is that we don't have it. We're not supposed to have any false idols. We're not, and that doesn't just mean a golden calf. It can mean an idea that is beyond question.
Is that drummed into you when you grow up? That sense of you don't accept.
It's not accepting. It's not looking down on either. Don't confuse it for that. It's about you need to be able to criticize. Even yourself, you need to be able to criticize. You put all the Jewish people in one room and they're all arguing, there's no... Even I'm just doing a book about Moses receiving the 10 Commandments, and he goes up the mountain, he comes down, and you'd think they'd all be like, oh, Moses, show us the way. What does Hashem want? That's how God... But no, they're rabbling, arguing down the bottom, like, he's been gone too long, this is all a sham, there's nothing there. Yeah, some of them, let's go back to the old way. We've got gold, we've got silver, we'll have a party. So there's always been within us this kind of need to worship what we see as the kind of maker of it all, but also doubting that there's a maker of it all. It's always like there's always the sense of doubt that we're completely like, have we lost the plot?
Yes. Yeah.
And the fact that we're still here thousands of years later, it's proof that there's some truth in that. I often think about that. I think I'm here because, that's almost a miracle anyway, given the amount of people that have tried to kill us. But, all these sort of emperors and dynasties, and we're like, you Jews, you better get on your knees and pray to the Caesar or to this Greek thing here, this god or that god. And we're like, no. And it's threatening to people, particularly if they don't feel that they have their own inner struggle themselves in what they believe. So they need to eradicate us in order to move on. And that's what I think is the anti-Zionist thing. It's a kind of collapse of the global left in a way.
Yeah, and collapse of what you were saying earlier, that sense of the importance of freedom and independence and agency. You know, the idea that you have agency, well, other people also have agency. You know, you have to respect that, and that people have different views based on different experiences. And actually, if you talk about them, or if you have arguments, you're more likely to come to some kind of sense of what's right than if you silence them.
Yeah, silencing is a sign of authoritarianism.
Yeah, and fear people, perhaps.
Yeah. There's a whole generation that have been raised without a religious kind of understanding, so that's the first thing. And their moral compass is based not on actions of individuals, but on skin color, sexual orientation, and that's kind of a false lens.
Yeah.
It's a very seductive one because there is always a degree of truth to all these things. I mean, even in the Soviet Union, they were like, you know, the poor are being oppressed by the evil capitalists and we must rise up and kill them. It's like, yeah, they were being oppressed. Yeah, they did have a terrible time, but
Yeah.
then your moral compass becomes rich, bad, poor, good. Now it's, you know, person of color, good, white person, bad. These are fake. These are not.
They're false divisions.
Yeah, they're not real. That's idea. You know, the idea is fundamentally wrong. And if you follow it, everything will fall to pieces.
So you said you've got a book in preparation. Is that a sort of what? Tell us a bit about that.
It's actually it's a sketch that I wrote years ago about Moses. That's why instead of receiving the 10 Commandments, he gets the health and safety commandments. I've used the image of Charlton Heston and just painted from that. Hold on. There's all sorts of lords. Can you see, like, in Aramaic? There's a little man falling over and some hands burnt under attack. So it's the idea that the story is that Moses, you know, is born into Egypt, is rescued from slavery by his mother, but he sees the people of Israel being enslaved and he realizes it's really unsafe and some of them are really hurting themselves on the building sites, and you know they haven't got any plasters and they haven't even got hard hats. So it's all about he's leading them into the desert so they can wrap themselves in cotton wool and become safe, you know, and understand the importance of safety beyond everything else. So it's completely surreal. He turns the into a bollard.
So when is that coming? Do you think
that will be out for Jewish Culture Week in May, this May?
Oh, good. All right.
2026 at the JW3. So it's very funny. I'm not sure how many I'm going to print. Probably a very small run because it's maybe a bit niche, but I'm not sure. Everyone seems to laugh when I show it to them, so that's good.
So have you got the text written as well yet, or is it?
No, I sometimes I go swimming, and then when I'm swimming, I think of an image. So the one I'm doing right now is him with a box of plasters and band-aids, talking to the pharaoh, like showing them that this should be. But it's not just about physical safety; it's about you know, no one should have their feelings hurt, and we have to be kind, kind of thing.
Like, it sounds like it'll be another gem that I'm really looking forward to.
Very strong idea. I think it's a very strong idea.
It's a very strong idea. Right. So it'll be the same kind of series
Not quite. It's a bit like I did one for Marina Abramovic, which she was selling at her show at the RA, and it's Dung Beetle, but it's a bit more sort of whimsical storytelling than early learning. But it's like this is like the kind of book, you know, this is a Moses book.
Yes.
Original ones, so a bit more like that, but not so text heavy. Again, probably very sparse text.
Yes.
Just at the moment, I've done about 10 illustrations. Oh, this one's funny. It's his mother, and you know she puts him in a 5-point harness.
Oh.
It's like exploring the health and safety tyranny, or just call it safetyism.
And do you have any other ideas that you're sort of working on, or is that
at the moment just that one? I can only do one thing at a time. Once I've done that, I'll move on to the next thing. I've always got something that I want to do that I haven't finished yet. But hopefully, I think this one's quite strong, and I hope people find it funny. I think it's not just about Moses. It's about now. It's about, you know, how we don't really appreciate freedom, but we do appreciate all these rules, irrational rules that apparently keep us safe, but they're kind of making everyone a bit pathetic.
Well, thank you very much. I enjoyed the conversation. I hope you did.
Yes, I did.